Hello everyone, Gilligan Kruger 0829 here, and welcome to the second day of my American Pie movie series review. Today we'll be looking at the first sequel to the 1999 box office smash. This one's simply entitled American Pie 2. All the old cast from the original is back and ready for several sexual hijinks and hilarious mishaps. How well did they do this second time around? Well, we've got a lot to discuss and a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right in. This is American Pie 2. So this movie begins towards the end of our main characters from the last movie. As I mentioned, they're almost finished with their first year of college. And after that, it begins essentially with Jim's father, played again by Eugene Levy, and Jim, played by Jason Biggs. The father is trying to surprise Jim. Unfortunately, he walks in while Jim is having goodbye sex, quote-unquote, with one of the college girls he knows. This is awkward enough, but then the girl's parents walk in, then Jim's mom walks in, and we know it's going to be an American Pie movie filled with stuff like this. But once we get a title screen, all four of the characters from before, Jim, Finch, Oz, and Kevin, just go back to their home in Michigan and start off by going to another party by Partymeister Stifler. But when they get there, they hit a few rough spots. See, they believed as college students they would be better suited in order to get high school girls, but it doesn't really work that way. More so are the problems for Kevin, who's pressured into wanting to get back together with his old girlfriend Vicky, played again by Tara Reid, while she just wants to stay friends, and that's a struggle. But Kevin gets some advice from his brother, who's actually played by Casey Affleck. We don't see him, I don't think, only hear his voice through the phone. And he says that the four friends should go down to a beach house and party there over the summer and forget all their troubles. The problem is, it's very expensive, and in order to afford it, they need a fifth person, and they're forced into bringing Stifler along, which is automatically going to lead to more sexual hijinks than we already had. Plus, there's another problem for Jim. You see, right before he leaves, he gets a call from his old love interest, Nadia, you know, the one he stripped in front of in the last movie. And she says she's going to come visit him at the beach house towards the end of the summer. And Jim, who feels unprepared, like he can't really talk to Nadia, yet alone impress her, if you know what I mean, goes to see Michelle at her band camp over the summer and talks to her about getting some advice. In the process, though, Jim finds he's actually falling in love with Michelle, and he's debating over which girl he wants to be with. And the movie that we get is essentially following the adventures of all of these teenagers, or better, adults, in their first summer after college. Now, I'm just going to say it right up front, of the first three American Pie movies, this is easily my favorite. I think it does things so much better than the first one. It has the goods and bads of American Pie 1, but I think they're just handled better, and let me explain why. Let me start with what I praised the first movie about: the relationships between the characters and the dramas they go through. Again, all of these characters are really likable and really memorable. You've got Jim, the memorable nerd, you've got Stifler, the memorable douchebag, and Michelle is still the memorable band geek. And they all work, because they still have unique personalities. And while technically it is stereotyping, and that usually bothers me and stuff like this, I don't think it's done to a way where it's insulting, like some teenage shows, won't name any by name, do it. Because here again, as I said, they try to be more serious. Because the characters, I think, are a bit more mature this second time around. Particularly with Kevin, who I personally found him to be the most relatable character in this movie. Because this film really delves into some issues that I think, while college students, me being a college student personally, while they don't really talk about them in great detail, it's definitely clear they think of them. Like, going again to Kevin, towards the end of the movie, he says that his brother wanted him to see the picture, and then he delivers the line, you see, things change, and they're always going to be different, but the only problem is, I don't want them to be different. And when you think of it, that's actually pretty heavy stuff. Because college students, it's a general stereotype that they just want to get to college and party. I know, but for me personally, I'm with Jim exactly. I was like this my first year of college. Okay, I said Jim when I meant Kevin. My fault. I'm gonna mark that out before someone hits me over it in the comments section. But I understand exactly what they said, and I kind of frankly was surprised that that line actually made it into this movie, this teen comedy per se. Even if it is at the end, it's still shocking to hear it, and I really think it sums it up perfectly. And in addition to that, we do have the romances between the characters, and they're still believable and still interesting, especially the one between Jim and Michelle. And I honestly don't think I'm spoiling much by telling you that they do end up together, but you probably know that already. But that's done really well here. It's still done the kind of American Pie-esque way, but it's handled really nicely. In fact, I think the end scene, when he shows up to the concert, this is again the inner feminine side in me coming out, I'll admit, but I think that, quite frankly, is sweeter than most romantic movies I've seen in recent years. This is an R-rated teenage comedy, more romantic than some romantic films. I gotta say, that's pretty shocking, but again, it works really well. I really liked it even more so than the last time around. Just thought it was a great thing. But I think what a lot of you are probably wanting to hear is what I think about what I slammed in my review of the first American Pie movie, and that is the comedy. I said that while I had one or two scenes that made me laugh, there really wasn't all that much, and I thought they went a little overboard with the sex and stuff. I don't think they did this time. Yeah, big shock, but I think it was handled a lot better. The scenes, while they still have that sexual tone to them, in fact sometimes it is still cringeworthy for me personally, but I do think it's handled a lot better. There are a lot of funny scenes in this one, like when Stifler, Finch, and Jim walk in on two women they believe to be lesbians, and the girls actually get them to do homoerotic things in front of each other, only to find out that their voices and whatnot are being broadcasted over the entire beach town, including a pair of walkie-talkies that a bunch of kids have. That was funny. There's a scene, I think a little bit afterwards, where, again, we're doing this sexual American Pie-esque humor, but in this one, I think it's better. Jim is watching a porno that Stifler rented, and he tries to masturbate with some lubricant, but unfortunately, instead of lubricant, he puts super glue on his hands, and his hands get stuck to his crotch. And again, I thought that was funny. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't think it's funny, but it is. But by far, my favorite funny scene in this movie is when Jim is trying to talk to Michelle at band camp, and he gets mistaken for a mentally challenged trombone player, in which he actually has to go in front of a stage and play the trombone in front of everyone. Now, as a former trombone player, this scene was hilarious to me. I must have watched it 3 or 4 times when I first saw the movie. I cracked up every time. Mainly just from the sheer unexpectedness of this and the way he's doing it. Like, I don't know how many of you know the trombone very well, but when you play the trombone, this is how you do it. Exactly like that, holding it with the bell to your shoulder, or left shoulder, and the slide in your right arm. However, since Jim has no idea how to do it, he's got it set up, be careful here, like this, like he's holding the bell. I don't remember exactly how, but he's got it like this, and he's playing like... And what makes it worse is he actually starts marching and hopping and dancing. Again, that scene is great. It was my favorite scene in the movie by far, and I thought it was handled really well. A lot of this comedy really surprised me in this movie, because, as I said, moving away from the first one, I thought it could have been a lot better, and they did that this time around. So I think it's funny and it's romantic. It really works well for me. Now, I really only have one problem with this movie, and that is that it does feel like a whole bunch of subplots put together rather than one real coherent story. Now, that's not always a horrible thing. The subplots do work pretty well, but when you're getting to around the relationship you have to keep with Oz and Heather, and then Kevin trying to get back Vicky, Finch trying to impress a certain adult woman, I won't mention who, but if you've seen the first one, you know who I'm talking about, and Jim trying to hook up with Michelle, it sometimes gets distracting. It almost feels like the story tries to juggle a few too many things at once at times. But again, it's not a big issue. It just at times made the movie feel a bit slow. Still though, this is a very good teenage movie and still my favorite of the first three. It's romantic, it's funny, and it's got a lot of life messages. If you're a teenager, college student, or even a young adult, I do think you'd enjoy this movie. I recommend it. So on that level, I'm giving American Pie 2, 3.5, but just under 4 stars out of 5. You can find all my movie reviews on my YouTube channel. If you have a movie you'd like me to review, comment on this video or on my channel. And until next time, peace!
I would give anything just to live one day in those shoes. If I can be like